Why would a stepmom need a polygraph test, a fake one at that? The board underneath had stained the concrete. Letecia Stauch was a teacher. Yeah, tries to run away. Gannon had been off that day. Off? A photo. And if he was still too sick at that time, why had she been dragging him around all day? It's fully cold. Held her at gunpoint. Now call me crazy. I know at this point we're all screaming it, that she's still mic'd up and they can hear everything. What a sicko. She ends up giving out 4 different versions of events. I know, so you're thinking it, I'm thinking it, detectives are thinking it, anyone in their God-loving right mind is thinking it. The mattress was blood-stained. How are you? How are we? Welcome back. If you're new here, I'm Victoria. I love all things sewing, all things true crime, and I love bringing them both together, doing a project while talking about a true crime case. So if that's your thing too, consider subscribing for weekly updates. So today I'm going to be making a top, a long sleeve top. It's a free pattern from Unfettered Patterns. I will link that below. So grab yourself a cup of tea, and if you're anything like me, you'll let it go cold. And let's jump right in. Our story today takes us to Colorado Springs, a city at the eastern foot of the Rocky Mountains, in a little neighborhood known as Larson Ranch. It's a peaceful, family-friendly neighborhood. It's clean, it's very well maintained. It's designed for families, where you open up the curtains or you open up your blinds, you've got the glorious backdrop of the snowy mountains. It's a little tight community that would be rocked come January 27th, 2020, when Letecia Stauch would call up the El Paso County Sheriff's Department at 6:55 p.m. to report that her 11-year-old stepson, Gannon Stauch, hadn't returned home from his friend's house. This is the case of Letecia Stauch. Letecia Stauch was a teacher in her 40s. She worked at French elementary school and was a busy mum to her 2 stepchildren, Lena 8 and Gannon 11. She also had an older daughter, Harley 17, from a previous relationship, as well as 2 dogs. She was married to Lena and Gannon's dad, Albert, who liked to be referred to as Al. Al was in the National Guards full-time, so he was away often, that would often leave Letecia at home holding the fort, so to speak. Landon, Gannon and Lena's mum, was in the picture, and the kids would often go and stay with her and visit her, but Al had full custody at that time. However, they all co-parented really well, and they all worked hard to get on with each other for the sake of the kids. Al would always be on the phone with Landon, keeping her up to date with the kids' goings on, and the kids would be phoning the mum every day to have a chat with their mum. It all seemed to be working, and they all seemed happy. That was until Monday the 27th of January, when Letecia had to make a phone call no parent ever wants to make. She had to call up the El Paso County Sheriff's Department and report Gannon as missing. He hadn't returned home from his friend's house. Now, she made the call, but they asked her to phone back the non-emergency number because the information she had given them, it just sounded like he was a juvenile runaway, and that's what they classed it as. A juvenile runaway. Later that evening, when detectives went over to the Stauch home to talk to Letecia, they felt like they just felt it was odd. They felt it was odd that she hadn't gone and done door-to-door checks herself. She wasn't out there looking for him, and she didn't know what friend's house he'd gone to, nor what they were called. She explained to detectives that Gannon had been off that day because he had stomach issues and he wasn't well, which detectives at the back of their minds thought was odd. Why was he out round a friend's house if he wasn't well? Red flag. She then continued to go on to explain that they'd been out and about running errands that day. Detectives, again, wondering why, if this lad was off sick poorly, why was she dragging him around running errands? And sure enough, detectives were able to collaborate this. They were able to find that she'd been to a pet store. They checked in with the neighbours' security cameras, and the neighbours' security cameras had clocked them leaving the house that day. So the neighbours' cameras had clocked them leaving the house at around 10:15 that day, but also had them coming home at about 2 p.m. that day. Detectives had also noticed on the security footage though that Gannon was walking really slowly and that he was struggling to get into the car. So they asked Letecia why, and Letecia said that Gannon had hurt his foot a few days prior in the garage. Al, Gannon's dad, liked to do woodwork, and Gannon had cut his foot on a woodworking tool in the garage. So to get a bit more information, detectives then asked Letecia why they were out running errands. What were they like? What were they doing? What were they getting? Why? Just why? And Letecia explained that they had to, because the night before, Gannon had knocked over in a strop, he'd knocked over a candle, a burning candle, burnt the carpet and ruined the carpet. So they needed to go out and fix it. And to prove this point, she then showed detectives quite a horrible video of Gannon crying and being really upset about the candle, and her sort of belittling him and shouting at him and tell him how angry Al would be. So how angry Gannon's dad would be. And then he's so upset and he's crying and he's shying away from the camera. And then she's saying, don't worry, we'll fix it. While showing detectives that video, she shows them a photo. You know, on the camera roll, there's a photo next to it. And it's a picture of Gannon asleep in bed. He's all tucked up in this quilt cover and his bedding. It's all tucked up, snugged up, and he's got his Nintendo Switch, it's a game console, right next to him. So she explains to detectives that she'd just sent that picture that morning to Al. However, there was a little bit of oddity to it. When detectives go in to talk to people about a situation, from the moment they're walking into the house, they're clocking things and sort of like noticing things. And then because this was then like a missing persons, they asked to see Gannon's room. And as they have a walk around the house, they can see that the bedding that's on Gannon's bed is not the bedding that is in the photo that Letecia had took that morning and sent to Al. So on security footage, they also see Lena, Gannon's sister, coming home at around 3:15 that day. And then shortly after she's come home, she's gone straight back out in the front garden and she's playing. And she's only 8, but she's there. So detectives just say, so have you seen Gannon? She says she wasn't able to see Gannon after school because Letecia had told her he was far too sick and sleeping. So alarm bells are going off in detectives' heads at this point. If at 3:15 Letecia's telling Lena he's still too sick to see anyone and he's sleeping, when did he go to his friend's house? And why? Why was he able to go to his friend's house if he was still too sick? And if he was still too sick at that time, why had she been dragging him around all day? Dragging him around all the shops to do errands. Letecia had told Lena to go out and have a little play out the front while she was doing some cleaning. And during this time, Al he'd sent the typical dad text, "Hey buddy," to Gannon's phone, but it had gone unread. Al didn't think nothing of this. He just thought because his little lad was poorly, he thought he was sleeping. And then Letecia then sends her eldest daughter, Harley, a text asking her to pick up some cleaning products on the way home, but could she come and collect Lena so that she's not on her own because she's busy inside having to focus in on cleaning up all the candle mess, all the mess that had happened the night before with the candle. So Harley, when she's finished work, she comes along, she gets Lena, and then they pop off and they go and get loads of cleaning products, cleaning supplies that Letecia had texted and asked for. So later that evening, Harley and the rest of the community were out and about. So Harley was in her car driving around shouting Gannon's name, and so was the rest of the community. Only Letecia wasn't. Letecia was on the phone updating Al. She was on her mobile, so she could have moved around while she was doing it, but she wasn't. So she was in the house updating Al, but on top of that helping him book flights, because he'd literally only left the day before for a 2-week training exercise in Oklahoma, literally hours before. So we're still on Monday here and he'd left on Sunday. So at around 8 o'clock the next day, 8 a.m. the next day, Letecia leaves the house to go to the airport to pick Al up. Only she leaves in her, I don't know how to say this car name, so I'm just going to say a VW SUV. I'm just going to say a VW. Volkswagen. So she left the house at 8 a.m. that morning, so the next day, and she left to go to the airport in her VW. Now when she got to the airport, she parked her VW in the short stay car park and then rented out a Kia and then continued to pick Al up. So she's left her VW in the airport car park, rented out her Kia, and then picked Al up. So Al, he gets in the car and he thought it was odd, and she says to him, "Well, I just didn't want to put mileage on my car. I didn't want to put excess mileage on my car." And Al thought it was odd, but to be fair to Al, he didn't care. He was more focused on trying to find his son. So, and that same morning, Al's mum and sister arrived, as well as Gannon's mum. They all arrived in Colorado Springs. So later that morning, Al and Letecia meet up with detectives at the local Starbucks. Their house has gotten really crowded, so it's just easier for them to meet up at the local Starbucks. That's where they go over Gannon's last known movements, his last known whereabouts, and they chat about the day building, like the whole day building up to it. They really go over all the information, and it's here where Al gives the detectives Gannon's phone. So at around 3:30, 3:45, Al goes home and Letecia goes for a drive. Tension's building up a little bit. She needs to clear her head. The house is filled with his family and the kid's mum, and she just needs to clear her head. And it's here that it's noted that her location becomes unknown, and it's unknown until about 7 p.m. that evening. And she's refusing to tell anyone where she is. She's not telling Al, no one. She's refusing to tell anyone where she is. And she's even leaving text messages from Al left unread. She's just ignoring them. But she does stay in touch with her eldest daughter, Harley. Her and Harley are messaging back and forth, and Harley's explaining what's going on at the house. So Harley, in effect, is keeping her in the loop of what's going on back home. And during this time, she even manages to take a call from detectives where they're asking her to bring in Gannon's toothbrush, and she refuses. She says she can't come into the station to hand that in because she's got stomach issues and she can't use any public toilets. Pressure's mounting, and detectives, they just know she's just not acting right. She's not acting like a parent should act when your child goes missing. Her story keeps changing. she's acting evasive. But they just knew, but they were hoping that she does something, or something would lead them to Gannon. So let me get these sewn and I will be right with you. It's fully cold. So during the time that Letecia's whereabouts were completely unknown, Al was popping in and out of the sheriff's department, giving all the information he could, doing everything he could, just to find his little boy. And that's where he ended up doing a press release, a media press release. And there he was pleading for Gannon to come home. He wasn't in any trouble, to just come home. But it was noted there by the community, by Al's family, and by detectives, that Al was stood up there by himself. Letecia wasn't there. She was nowhere there. You'd think, being a parent, that you would want to be there. But it was noted she wasn't there. She was completely absent. So after the press release, Al went back into the sheriff's department, and it was there that the detectives asked why Letecia was driving a different car. Why was she driving the Kia? And Al explained that she said it was because she didn't want to run mileage up. And so detective said, so where's her car? And Al said, well, it's meant to be at the school she works at. It's meant to be in the car park where the school she works at. She apparently left it there. Only during this time, when her whereabouts was unknown, Al had gone looking for her, and he'd drove past that school, and her car, her VW, wasn't at the school car park like she said. So he told detectives that, and detectives, they were building a picture. A picture was happening in their heads. So they went off and they had a little look at that car, the school car park, and noted that it weren't there. And then they knew that the Kia was a rental car from the airport, so they popped to the airport to see. And sure enough, the Kia was parked up in the airport car park, but Letecia's VW wasn't in the car park, meaning she must have been in it, right? So detectives go to the Stauch family home, and they go there to start having a look around, a deeper look around, and gathering evidence. And Harley's there. Harley is 17, so she's legally old enough to be questioned on her own, but she's there. And detectives start asking her some questions. But again, she is only 17. She may be legally old enough for questioning, but she is only 17. So panicked, she texts her mum, and she says, what do I do? What do I say? And her mum just says, just leave. Don't tell them where you're going. Just leave and meet me at hotel. Meet me at so-and-so hotel. So a little bit freaked out, Harley then leaves, and she goes to the hotel to meet her mum. Now this is quite late at this point, and she thinks her mum's there waiting for her. Only when she arrives, her mum's nowhere to be seen, so she just sits in a car waiting for her mum. So then Letecia then tipped up around 11:30 that night. So the next day, Wednesday, Al finally gets hold of Letecia, and Letecia tells Al that she's been feeling pushed out, everyone's in her home, and she just feels that she doesn't belong there. Al's comforting her and just trying to talk with her, and this is where Letecia lets it out that she was sexually assaulted that Monday, and she was sexually assaulted by a person called Eduardo. As you can imagine, Al is, well, he's flabbergasted. So he's asking, well, what happened? Are you okay? What's going on? Remember, she's still his wife. This is where she says that he held her at gunpoint while he was doing what he was doing, and she blacked out. And as he was finishing, I think you can get where I'm going with this. As he was finishing, she woke up to Gannon jumping on top of him and trying to punch him and get him off her. Only Eduardo flung Gannon across the room and he hit the wall. With that, once he'd finished, he grabbed Gannon, held him at gunpoint and told her to get him a suitcase. So off Letecia goes during all this manicness with Lena upstairs, and goes and gets a suitcase, brings it down. Eduardo stuffs Gannon in this suitcase and then abducts him, leaves the house with him. Now, during this phone call, it was being recorded. Because of Letecia's ever-changing stories and her evasiveness and the way she was acting, police had actually asked out to record all conversations with Letecia on the phone or face to face. So he'd actually recorded this, and you can hear him say to her, look, you need to tell detectives this, you need to let them know the information, they need to know this will help us find Gannon. With that, she then phones detectives and she says, we need a meeting, I need to come in for a chat, I've got something really important to tell you. And the detectives and her agree a time of 10 o'clock that morning. So before she goes to the police department to go and talk to them, she drops off her Kia. She hands back in the Kia keys. And 10 o'clock rolls around and she's still not at the appointment, at the meeting where she's meant to be. And she then sends a text message to the lead detective and she says, I'm running late, I'm still coming, but she's just been dealing with some death threats her and her family have been getting, but she'll be with them shortly. So when she finally arrives, detectives notice that her car's wet, only it's not raining. So while they're interviewing her behind the scenes, they are getting a search warrant to seize her car. And while the lead detective is in with her, questioning her or sitting talking to her, other detectives are going around locally searching for car wash footage. This is where her VW car is spotted with partial footage of her car being washed. Meanwhile, while she's in with the lead detective, she's explaining all about Eduardo. She's explaining how she'd met him on the morning of the 27th and that he was on the site. So where they lived, some houses were still being built and he was in their building, still building, doing some building work. And she'd met him that morning and she'd asked him if he could fix carpets and he was like, well, yeah, I can fix carpets. So they made an agreement and they agreed that he would then go into the house and fix the carpet while she and Gannon were out running errands. So because they were out, she gave him the garage code to get in so he could then go in and repair it. She then told detectives that when she came back in the house, he held her at gunpoint and started essaying her. With that, she then blacked out and she woke up to him finishing and Gannon jumping on top of him to try and get him off her. And then he flung Gannon across the room and into a wall, held him at gunpoint and demanded a suitcase. And detectives asked what the suitcase looked like because now they were going to have to be on the lookout for the suitcase. And she explained that it was a brown suitcase. She explained that Eduardo then forced Gannon into this suitcase and then left the house with him in the suitcase. And with that information, detectives then looked into her claims. They looked into more security footage to see if they could see if he'd left, see if he came, if they could see anything. But one telling thing was, at the time of her being allegedly essayed, she was also texting Al, and they were having a text exchange back and forth. Now, call me crazy. I'm not sure you're going to be able to stop your attack to message your husband back and forth. I don't think it's going to be happening. Do you? So with that, detectives then said to her, so why didn't you tell us? Why didn't you tell us this information when we first come round, when we were first there? And as it was getting to crunch time and they were getting closer and closer to pinning her down, she started clutching her chest and having shortness of breath and was really putting on this show. So detectives then stopped the interview and asked for medical backup, and they proceeded to then take her to the hospital. Now, while she was at the hospital, they'd got a warrant out for DNA collection, which means then that a trained professional would then go in and do a essay exam, but she refused it. She just kept acting more and more evasive, and even though she wasn't under arrest, she then sneaks out of the hospital without telling anyone. So the officers that were there, the staff, the nurses, she didn't tell anyone. She just snuck out and messaged her eldest daughter, who was with a friend at the time, and asked her to come pick her up. So then she could then go and collect her car from the police station. Harley comes with her friend, picks her up. They drive to a police station and Letecia's car's no longer there. It had, in fact, been seized. So Harley and Letecia then stay at the friend's house that they'd driven with. Then the next day, on the 3rd, Letecia's aunt and her brother, it's her stepbrother, but we're just going to call her brother, they arrive. It's her half-brother, so we're just going to say brother. And they come in to give her some support. They felt that she was being fairly mistreated by the press, and they just wanted to come and give her some support. Because her car had also been seized, she then hires out another car, but this time it's a Nissan. So she hires out another car. Her and Harley have no clothes because it's all at the family home, where she isn't apparently welcome. So they drive to a local Marshall's, which is a clothing store. Only the police have doing surveillance on them, so the police are following them. And when they get there, police come out and they approach Letecia and Harley, and they say, we have a warrant for your phones, so we'd like your phones, please. And it's at this point Letecia tries to run away. Tries to run away. She doesn't get very far before the police officers have got her, and then they retrieve both hers and Harley's phone. I know at this point we're all screaming it. Just arrest her already. She clearly did it. Just arrest her. Why haven't they arrested her? But they were waiting. They were waiting for data to come back from the car. They were waiting for forensics to come back from the car. They were waiting. They needed the proof. They needed the proof. They needed it all to fit into place. They couldn't mess this up. They needed to make sure they did it right. So after the incident, Letecia then meets up with her family. Oh, I've gone wrong. And they stay at another hotel for the night. A different hotel for the night. And it's here that during the night, while they're asleep in bed, police officers then sneak up to the car and attach a tracking device to it. The Nissan. I'll just get this sewed. So when they wake up the next day, Letecia's aunt then rents out a van, and they rent it out for the sole purpose of going back to the Stauch family home so that they can pick up Letecia's and Harley's belongings. Her brother, her aunt, go over to the family house. They are picking up her belongings, and Harley stays in the van. But while they're loading the van, Letecia then gives a very odd press release, and she's talking to the reporter, and she's got her back to this reporter the whole time, like the back to the camera the whole time, so like this, and she's talking, and she doesn't let the camera see her face. Now that alone is odd, but the interview that she gave was odd. She was busy saying how everyone would be sorry when Gannon come home, and they'd be able to see that she did nothing. She's saying that she can't be at the family home right now because it's so manically busy and everyone's there, and she felt really pushed out, so she couldn't, and she was saying that she didn't join in the searches because she felt really pushed out. It was just an all-round really odd, strange interaction. And then she even starts saying that the detectives were like really rude to her daughter Harley, and that Harley was only 17 and she's a good girl and she's a good kid. And that's when the interviewer's like, oh, is she here? And Letecia's like, oh yeah, she's here, so she can even collaborate my story. Letecia then, without realising and without knowing that she is still, well, she knows, but without realising that she's still mic'd up and they can hear everything, she then goes over to the van, she speaks to Harley and says, oh, they want to interview you too, and actually tells Harley how to act, what to say, what not to say, what to do. And then Harley does that and then comes into the interview, and she even has a side-on profile. And then once Harley's gone, Letecia continues on with her interview, but she's laughing and she's almost flirtatious with the reporter. So after the interview's finished, they all head back to the hotel with the van and all their belongings, and Letecia then states she's got to go out and get dog food. So she's run to the pet store, she won't be long, she's just going to pop to go and get some dog food. And with that, off she goes. Unbeknownst to her, she's in the car that's being tracked, and police are tracking her location, and they notice that she's gone all the way out to a place in Douglas County. It's not a pet store, it's not a pet shop, it's just a random place in Douglas County. So they look back on her, so in her seized car, the car has data of where it's been, and they look back on that data in the car and they notice that she was also in her VW been to that same place. So yeah, they then rush over to that place, and that is sadly where they find a piece of, well, it's a piece of chipboard with Gannon's blood on it. So the Saturday the 1st of February, Al hands over his car to detectives. He's there, he's fully in this, he's doing everything he can to help this investigation. And meanwhile, Letecia is renting out another van. It's not explained why she needed another van. I couldn't find any information on it. It's very unclear why they needed another van, but the brother hires out another van and they are busy unloading the stuff from one van to put it into another van. And Letecia is moving the suitcases, and it's noted that by her brother that she's really struggling with one suitcase. It's really quite heavy. The brother's like, what have you got in there? And she laughs it off. She literally laughs it off and says, it's just softball stuff. It's just softball stuff. What a sicko. What an absolute sicko. Just softball stuff. I'm sure you can see where this is going already. It was odd because it was at that time that like Letecia's brother felt that it was time to go home. Something didn't feel right. Something felt odd. He just wanted to go home. So he and his aunt then hand back the old van and the Nissan, the hire car, and they fly back home. So it's then noted that Letecia then gets in the van with Harley and they start heading to Florida. But on the way, she stops off at a Walmart, purchases another mobile phone. So while she was off on her way to Florida, the detectives were still working behind the scenes. The El Paso Sheriff's Department had seized the Stauch family home, and they were documenting all the evidence around the house and in Gannon's bedroom, and they had also put a recording device on Al's phone, and then they were working really closely with Al and coaxing him on how to speak to Letecia to try and get more information out of her. And funny enough, while Letecia was on the road, she did call Al, and through a lot of back and forth she ends up giving Al four different versions of events. Story number 1. The abductors were still in the house while detectives were there that first night, the first night that Gannon went missing, and she was there. She was there trying to tell them. She was trying to secretly let them know, but they weren't picking up her signals. Story number 2. She was essayed by a man called Quincy Brown, and he was the one that actually abducted Gannon. Story number 3. Quincy Brown followed her back from Petco, and while she was driving her car home, he was laying in the middle of the road. Panicked, she stopped and he jumped in the car and then forced her to drive home, where he continued to essay her. Story number 4. Letecia had got Gannon a bike, so she took him all the way out near County High Road, where he fell off, hit his head, and then he was abducted by Quincy Brown. I'd like to just state that Quincy Brown had absolutely nothing to do with this case at all. The only reason Letecia knew his name was because he was at that time on the El Paso's most wanted list. In some of the phone calls, you can physically hear the strain in Al's voice. How he was able to try and keep the conversation going it's just beyond me. As a parent myself, it's just beyond me. During this time, the police let the public know that they would be searching the area for Gannon, and it was in that same search area as in Douglas County. Meanwhile, Letecia and the van had returned from Florida and it had come back to Colorado Springs and back to the car rental, so the police seized the van and started collecting data evidence right away. During this time, they'd been able to put a listening device, searching device on Letecia's phone, and they come across a number that it was out of the ordinary for what her call list was. So they looked up the number and it linked to fake polygraph testing site. So they listened in on the phone call. They listened in onto the conversation where Letecia had phoned them up and said she hadn't received her results yet. And the poor assistant on the phone was so apologetic, and he was really confused, and he was like, I'm sorry ma'am, I will get this to you within the hour. And then the call ended, only for her to call back an hour later. She still hadn't received the results, and when she asked, the assistant explained it had been blocked by management based on the content of the questions, and that if they ever felt there was any illegal activity, they reserved the right not to send the test results. I know, so you're thinking it, I'm thinking it, detectives are thinking it, anyone in their God-loving right mind is thinking it. Why would a stepmom need a polygraph test? A fake one at that? Well, police decided to give them a call and find out what questions were asked. So here are the questions. Question number 1. Do you intend to answer these questions about your stepson truthfully? Yes. Question number 2. Is your birthday the 4th of August 1983? Yes. Question number 3. Did you participate in any way in harming your stepson? No. Question number 4. Did your stepson return with you to your home? Yes. And question number 5. Did you participate in any way in causing the death of your stepson? No. So with that, and with all the other mounting evidence against her, they arrested Letecia Stauch for first-degree murder, attacking a child resulting in death, tampering with a deceased human body, and tampering with physical evidence. Okay. I know, I get you, I know, we know, and it's so obvious. She did something to poor Gannon. But how do we know? So it is believed that Letecia killed Gannon on Monday the 27th of January. And sadly it's believed that she killed Gannon in his bedroom at around 2:15 to 2:20 p.m. So just before little Lena come home from school. Gannon's bedroom went under luminol testing, and for anyone that doesn't know, I'm sure if you're here you watch a lot of true crime, so you know, but just in case you don't, luminol is a liquid that you spray over a room and blood will shine up blue. So even if you've washed it, it will still be blue. It might just be a bit fainter, but it won't, you'll see it. There's no way you can hide it. So Gannon's bedroom goes under luminol testing, and there was blood everywhere. In one particular corner of Gannon's bedroom, blood had literally seeped through the carpet, the board underneath, and stained the concrete. There was blood stains and blood splatter all up the walls around Gannon's bed, and his mattress was blood stained in the same area that would have lined up with the blood that seeped through down to the concrete. Blood samples was then took and tested, and sadly it did all come back that it was Gannon's blood. With so much blood in the bedroom, this is where they believe, sadly, she murdered Gannon. So there was blood also found in the hallway out of Gannon's room, leading into the utility room, the stairs out of the utility room, the landing leading up the stairs, then the pathway leading to the garage, and then the garage itself. Letecia had already covered her back with the blood in the garage. Remember how she'd said Gannon had cut his foot a few days prior? Well, detectives had proof that that couldn't have been the case, because if they had, why had she then took him out on the Sunday with Lena to go on a hike? So Harley had mentioned that on the Sunday that Al left to go for his 2 weeks training, and the day before Gannon went missing, that Letecia, Gannon and Lena all went on a hike after Al left. So how can they hike when he'd cut his foot on the Saturday before? Gannon's remains were sadly found on the 17th of March. His little body was found inside a suitcase 1,300 miles away from home in Florida. It is believed that Letecia, after murdering Gannon, put him in the suitcase and then put the suitcase in her VW. It's believed then that she then cleaned up the house and then decided to put the call in to the police. Then with his remains in the suitcase in the back of her VW, she then still had to pick up Al the next day, and that's why she then rented out the Kia. Blood evidence was found inside her VW that confirms this theory. It is then believed that she dumped Gannon's body in North Carolina, but then later went back to retrieve him. Remember when she went to get dog food? It's believed then that she went back to retrieve him then. And then in the van, the heavy suitcase, it's believed that she then transferred Gannon into the new van and then made the journey over to Florida and then dumped him under the bridge there. Gannon was in the same suitcase that Letecia had described that Eduardo and Quincy Brown had both took. When Gannon was found, his little body had sustained 18 stab wounds. He had a gunshot wound to his lower jaw, he had been strangled and sustained a fractured skull. During the autopsy it was also noted that he had defensive wounds up his hands and blunt force trauma to the back of his head. Letecia pled not guilty by reasons of insanity and claimed that she had DID, dissociative identity disorder. But with all that being said, a doctor did find her competent to stand trial. Thankfully, after 5 weeks of trial, the jury found Letecia Stauch guilty on all counts, and she received a life sentence without the possibility of parole. Thankfully, she's never getting out. So that is the horrific case of Letecia Stauch. Let's have a little look at the make. What do we think? I kind of love it. So if you've made it through this far, thanks for sticking around. I know it was a bit of a tougher one this week, so all that's left to do is bid you farewell. Take care of yourself, take care of others. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and I'll see you back here next week for the next case and project.